Have you ever just walked into the kitchen and seen a nice, big, double chocolate cake sitting on the counter? You know what I'm talking about. You walk into the kitchen and you're just minding your own business, and then BAM! There's this awesome, nice cherry cobbler just sitting on the counter. Or there's this plate full of chocolate chip cookies, or there's just this nice chocolate truffle just sitting there, and you're just minding your own business, and out of nowhere it just sits there, and it looks at you, and you look at it, and you're like, oh, chocolate cake, why are you here? And the chocolate cake looks at you and says, eat me. It calls out your name, doesn't it? It just like, you're there and you just see this nice big huge chocolate cake, and it's like, James, come eat me. And it's like, no, don't call out my name, don't look at me. And you're trying to look away from this chocolate cake because, you're fighting the urge to not eat it. Because, you tell yourself, oh, I shouldn't eat the chocolate cake because it's going to mess up my appetite for dinner, or mess up my appetite for lunch. Or worse, it'll mess up your figure. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Because you want to eat the chocolate cake, but you don't want to eat it because you know that you shouldn't. And then you're like, okay, I'm not going to do it. And you start to turn away. But then you're just like, no, I've got to just taste it. I just want to taste. That's all you're going to do, is you're just going to look at it, and you're go over to it, and you're just going to take your finger, and you're just going to, take a little bit of frosting. You're just going to taste the frosting, and then that's it. So you taste the frosting, and that's it. You just take one small taste of frosting, and then you're just like, well, it's so good, I'll just have a really, really, really small piece of the cake. Just a really small piece, just like this big. Just a small piece, just to taste it, just to make sure that it's safe for everyone else. You're doing the world a favor. You just want to make sure that it's safe, and if it's bad, then you can tell everyone. You're just making sure. It's just service, and you're just wanting a little taste. So then you start cutting the piece, and you make the first slice, and then you cut the second slice, and you accidentally cut a much larger piece than you should have. And so then you're like, well, I've already cut it, I got to eat it, right? So you eat the big piece of cake that you've eaten. Now, if you're anything like me, and there's no one else around to tell you that's enough, you end up eating another piece, and maybe even another piece. And it's possible you might even eat like half of the entire cake before you're even done. Now, some of us don't go that far, but the process is still the same. We walk in, minding our own business, and the food calls out to us, and we know we shouldn't eat it, but we eat it anyways, and we eat much bigger piece than we should have. The process of sin in our life is similar to this situation. We don't usually end up just one day finding a big sin and we commit it. Okay? It doesn't just pop up on us one day. You just decide to commit this horrible sin. Okay? Usually, it's a process of starting with just a small little tiny sin. Okay? Just a small little sin. And it just continues to develop in varying degrees, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it starts out as just a small something little that you can just let slide. And then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, you find this massive sin. Okay? And usually, it comes out of nowhere. You're just minding your own business, and you're walking along, and boom, just like the chocolate cake, it's there. And it starts calling out your name, and you fighting the temptation. It's the same thing with sin. It just hits you out of nowhere. And a lot of times when our guard is down, Satan will come and just get us. Okay? Well, that's the way sin is sometimes. The same way that we give in to eating this chocolate cake, it's the same thing as sin. Now, am I saying it's a sin to eat chocolate cake? No. But what I'm saying is that is similar to how sin works. So eventually, what started out with just a small taste ends up being a very large piece. That's it for today, and always remember, my name is James, and I am your friend.